I'm in the small blind with ace-10 offsuit. The hijack opens to 34k. It folds around to me. I had 17 big blinds left. Both the big blind and the original raiser had me covered. 3-betting to any size would make me pot committed. So I decided to go all in. The big blind folds. Fortunately, the hijack snap calls. There's only 59 players left in day 3 of this APT Championship main event. 612 entrants have already donated their 10k entry fee to the huge prize pool for this tournament. First prize is 1.2 million. I've already got 20k locked up. Some players are tightening up considerably, trying their best to hang on and not bust, while others are trying to exploit these guys, going after pots and hammering on their opponents. Let's continue back into the action to see what unfolds. So I get moved again to the stream table. The blinds are now 5k, 10k. I have 32 big blinds and pick up pocket sixes in the big blind. It folds all the way around to the player on the button, who raises it to 20k. I had never seen this player before, and the only information I've had so far since I sat down is seen her 3-bet preflop twice. Against a more weak passive player, I might choose 3-bet here, but against her I decided to just call and see a flop. The flop comes 10 of diamonds, king of diamonds, 5 of spades. Not the best flop. I check it over, and she makes a c-bet for 14k. This is one of those situations where I think I could be ahead, and facing a small c-bet, it's tempting to continue. But against a player that is likely not just going to bet once and give up, I think even if I had the 6 of diamonds, my hand is just too vulnerable to get outdrawn and too difficult to get to showdown. I do let this one go. So the very next orbit, I'm in the big blind again, and this time I have ace-king offsuit. It folds all the way around to the button, and again, the same player raises to 20k. This time I obviously have to 3-bet. She had just won a pot and had me covered. Being out of position here, I didn't want her to be able to peel too easily. I decided to 3-bet to 80k, and she does decide to fold. The very next hand, I'm now in the small blind. I have ace-9 offsuit. This same player is now in the cutoff, everybody folds to her, and again, she raises to 20k. None of the hands that I saw from her were going to showdown, so it was difficult for me to get a better idea of the range that she was opening with. But holding an ace in my hand, combined with the fact that she seems to be opening quite a bit, I decided to 3-bet again to the same size as last hand, to 80k. But this time, she puts her foot down and calls. We go heads up to the flop of 8 of hearts, 9 of clubs, 5 of diamonds. I flop top pair, top kicker, but it is on a board that favors the pre-flop caller's range. I decided to start with a check. She thinks about it for a bit and decides to check back. The turn is the deuce of clubs. My hand is quite vulnerable to overcards, so at this point it's pretty important to bet for protection as well as try to get value from draws. But against this specific opponent, I decided to check again. Like I mentioned earlier, my view on her was that she was more on the aggressive side, and I thought that against her, after checking twice, she might now decide to start bluffing with hands with very little equity, or start betting for value with hands that I have beat. Unfortunately, she does not take the bait and checks it again. The river is the 8 of clubs, putting a backdoor flush on the board, and now I think it's time for me to put in a bet. I went with around half pot to 94k, targeting hands like ace high and small pocket pairs. She does take her time with this one, and eventually does fold. So now seeing her hand, I might have missed an earlier street of value. And the funny thing is that I went back later to check the other hands where she was aggressive pre-flop, and I saw that she actually had ace-queen every time. But because none of those hands ever got to showdown, it just appeared that she was a very aggressive player. Sometimes when players get a bunch of big hands in a short window of time, it can be easy for us to make an assumption about that player and can affect your decision making against them. I'll admit that with the short time that I was at this table with her, that's kind of what happened. I consider myself kind of lucky that I didn't end up getting tangled up with her in a hand where she had a big hand and I ended up overplaying mine, thinking that she was just being overly aggressive. It's really important for us to really pay attention to those showdowns to try to gather as much information about players as possible before making any hard assumptions about their play. Moving on. So I get moved off the stream table. The blinds are now 6,000, 12,000. I look down at pocket 9s in the big blind. We're 7-handed. The player under the gun +1 opens to 24k, and the cutoff to his left 3-bets him to 58k. It folds around back to me. This is a very uncomfortable situation. I have about 35 big blinds. Both players did have me covered. Pocket nines is a very strong hand, but in this situation, facing a raise and a re-raise with my awkward stack size, I'm pretty handcuffed here. Flat calling seems like the worst option. I haven't seen either of these two players get out of line, so it was quite annoying, but I decided to let this one go. Next hand, I look down at pocket nines again. This time I'm in the cutoff. There's a raise from the player under the gun +1 to 25k. He's also our table's chip leader. I decided to just flat call. Small blind folds and the big blind calls as well. The flop comes 8 of clubs, 5 of spades, deuce of hearts. Big blind checks. The original raiser now bets 36k. Even though this is a seemingly good flop for my hand, as I have an overpair on the board, I thought it was a little bit concerning that he was c-betting into 2 players, and especially against me, who should have a relatively strong pre-flop calling range in position. But of course, I do still have to make the call. I do call, and the big blind folds. We go heads up to the turn, which is the ace of spades. Not the best turn card. If I wasn't behind already, I'm now also losing to all his ace-x combos. But here he decides to check. No reason for me to bet. I check back, and we go to the river, which is the queen of hearts, putting another overcard to my nines on the board. He decides to check again. I think my hand has just enough showdown value to check back. Hopefully he has a hand like 7s or 6s. I do check, and he turns over pocket 10s. So even though I lost this one, I probably lost the minimum here, as the 2 overcards also slowed him down quite a bit and let me get the showdown. Next hand, I'm in the big blind and look down at ace-4 offsuit. It folds to the cutoff, who raises to 25k. Everybody folds back to me. I make the defend, and we go to the flop of 4 of spades, 7 of clubs, 9 of hearts. I check it over to my opponent, who makes a c-bet of 25k. Facing such a small c-bet, the cutoff here could be betting a wide range of hands. This board does favor my big blind's calling range. My bottom pair of 4s is quite vulnerable. I decided to check raise to 70k, and he does quickly fold. The blinds are now 8,000, 16,000. I'm in the small blind and look down at 8-3 offsuit. Everybody folds around to me. Now the player in the big blind had just slightly more than me, around 20 big blinds. So far playing with him, he hadn't shown too much aggression. I decided to make a play here and raise to 55k. He thinks about it for a while and eventually puts me all in. Whoops. I admit that I definitely wasn't expecting that. Against an aggressive opponent, I would just fold pre-flop, but against this specific opponent, I don't mind my play here. This next hand, I'm in the big blind and look down at king-jack offsuit. It folds all the way around to the small blind, who decides to raise to 51k. After posting the big blind, I had 12 big blinds left. Blind versus blind here, my hand is an easy shove. I do shove, and he snap folds. So even though I lost the last blind versus blind battle, I got it right back in this one. Next one, I'm in the small blind with ace-10 offsuit. The hijack opens to 34k. It folds around to me, and here I had a decision. I had 17 big blinds left. Both the big blind and the original raiser had me covered. The original raiser was the table's chip leader, as I mentioned before, so his opening range can definitely be wider than the other players. Flat calling out of position here didn't seem like a good option, and at my stack depth, 3 betting to any size would make me pot committed. So I decided to go all in. The big blind folds. Unfortunately, the hijack snap calls. He turns over pocket queens. I still have 30% to hit the ace. But all my hopes were gone when he hit top set on the flop and had me drawing dead on the turn.
Good game. It was nice job.
Yeah, So that was all that was left in front of me at the end. Just a bunch of unused time banks. I ended up finishing in 39th place. As with any tournament, all the big payouts are awarded for the top few spots. And even though there wasn't any significant pay jumps coming up, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't disappointed to bust out in this hand after such a deep run. I'm still very grateful for this opportunity and have really enjoyed battling in the last 3 long days of this tournament. I hope you guys enjoyed this series. If you missed any of the vlogs from any of the previous days of this main event, you can go back on my channel to check those out anytime. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon. 喜欢我的影片，不要忘记按赞、订阅、打开小铃铛。